board members are present, along with Superintendent Wagner and incoming Superintendent, Mr. Bob Joshik. I believe I butchered that pretty good. So, but anyway, please join me with Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have the meeting agenda, and we're going to have the budget update will, I'm assuming will include the 24, 25, 26 budget forecast, and we'll get a grant update. Does anybody else have anything they want clarification or add or taken away from the agenda? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda for this evening.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Rowe, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Schoenfelder. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We have an educational plan up there on the wall, on that tripod, as we have at every meeting. And Ms. Buck is going to read our mission statement.
The mission of the Red Wing Public Schools is to educate and inspire all students as they realize their full potential and become respectful, responsible, and productive citizens.
Thank you. All righty, moving on to recognitions and upcoming events. Anybody have any recognitions? We obviously have one, for sure. Graduation just was there, and everybody, great to see everybody at the graduation ceremony, packed house. Very nice, fun night for the kids, and talked to some that had a good time afterwards at the arena. So, yes, Ms. Rowe.
Well, I would just like to say thank you to the committee that put together a great after graduation party. There's so many people that worked on the committee to make such a fabulous night possible for our kiddos and so the volunteers, but there's also a lot of donations from a lot of people around our community that are really supportive of our students. So thank you to all the volunteers and the donors for making that such a great night.
Yep. And also everybody to help put it off in the building here. You know, you're making that decision on Wednesday or Thursday that we're gonna be inside. It was a great call. I heard it was pretty pouring rain pretty good, but it takes quite a few people in the building to pull that off, all the way from the superintendent, the principal, to the staff, the teachers lining up when they walk in, to the custodians, to all the other volunteers that help it out. And a big thank you to them because it's a big night for the kids. And as they walked across the stage, as we were all up there, so many of them were so smiling. They were just happy. You know, they can say that they were started ninth grade and had COVID hit when they were there, and they finished it up as a senior. And we got a neat email. We got a really neat email from Ms. Buck had gotten it from a resident who expressed appreciation for their daughter being named read aloud, and so that's very, very moving. So, anybody else have anything else?
I'm gonna give a shout out, the shout out for the team that organized. They just made me look really good. I just showed up. They put it down on me, so that in the workshops, she has obviously stepped into the role as that. Will not take any praise, but did a nice job. The administrative team, the other staff that supported that. It was one of the most remarkable graduations I have ever attended, and I've attended quite a few, even though we had some technology issues. That was part of the resiliency, right? So, a very good night. It was well done.
And I think Mr. Chandler held it very well. And I'm in charge of technology on the place. Okay, anybody else have anything else? Upcoming events?
We do have the 25-year and retiree celebration coming up this week, so I don't know.
That's tomorrow at 5 o'clock at the Anderson Center.
And Pride, Saturday,
Saturday the 8th.
downtown, 1-5, and then on the 19th of June, Juneteenth. There's a tournament at the Y in the morning, and then walking tours of historical walking tours downtown, and then there will be activities in Central Park from 1 to 7?
I thought it was from 3 to 7.
3 to 7. Thank you.
And Superintendent Wagner's last official board meeting will be 2 weeks from tonight with Red Wing. So, then we'll have Mr. Joshik in the house in July. All right, anything else? Public comment, did you receive anything for public comment? I did not. Anybody in the audience want, here for public comment? Okay, we'll move along. Administrative reports.
All right, well, we're winding down our administrative reports. Luckily, my administrators have a plethora of fun professional development opportunities to attend in the upcoming weeks. We do have our I Love You Guys training coming up in Rochester. And then that will include our first responders and looking at the protocols of the whole, the secures, and the lockdown. I think we did a quick overview of what that looked like language-wise. So districts, leaders, our building principals will be gone 11 through 12 for kind of theory and then practice. And then on June 13th, Big Bang Leadership Conference, which is the annual conference, is hosted in Boatana. From 8 to noon this year, there's a focus on artificial intelligence and what does that look like for educational systems. So I'm pretty excited about that. And then the rest of the admin updates, as you can see, are just programmatic and building as they wrap up the school year and prepare for the summer programming in July.
Okay. Any questions? All right, move along. I check these things off so I don't miss them like I did last meeting. Committee updates. We had some little, who would like any committee updates? Anybody? Anybody? You had personnel, why don't you touch on that during the workshop, since the last personnel we had, an offer was made for the Indian Ed Director position, and we were waiting for a response back, and then we talked about during the workshop, some things going on this week that we didn't know
I love that note.
of. Yes.
So personnel-wise, our American Indian Ed Director has been selected pending background check and reference check. We are very close to securing a contract with this person, so super excited about that. Personnel-wise, we are also interviewing this week for Director of Teaching and Learning position as well as Human Resources. So hopefully we get closure on those two positions before the end of June.
And the Indian Ed Director is, what type of contract is it?
There was an option for a 10-month contract or a 12-month contract. This particular individual is opting for a 10-month contract.
Any questions? And it's all pending background checks and different things. All right. Any other committee reports? Nothing from negotiations?
You'll see that coming up
Okay.
later on the agenda.
All right, consent agenda. Anybody have anything they want to pull off the consent agenda?
I'd like to pull off number 5, please.
Pull up number 5? Anybody else have anything else? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exclusion of number 5 for now.
So, second.
Moved by Ms. Ossendorf, second by Ms. Tiff. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Ms. Rowe, number 5.
Yeah, I just wanted to have a little bit of a discussion about our data sharing agreements. That was something that we had decided as a board we were going to discuss at least on a yearly basis to find out how things are going with our sharing agreements. I know it says there's an example of an agreement in the back, so I guess I was a little bit confused too about is this an example of moving forward that we're going to use? I saw it was for i3 Works was in the example, but is that the exact?
i3 Works is a different example because it's a continuation of a service. I think the intention, and so you can jump here and here, are services that are coming in, for example, Hispanic outreach. Those agreements are going to be very unique to each of the organizations. They're still streamlined and we're keeping consistency with each of them. The i3 Works is just a little bit different.
Okay, so is that the one we're actually okaying today in the consent agenda? Because
The Hispanic outreach one is the one that's in the consent agenda. I have to double check. Ann is actually doing,
It's not,
it's not in there.
it's the I3 Works is what's on the consent agenda,
Yeah.
extra.
Okay, she's actually presenting on that today, so do you want to table that now, or do we have to?
We can table it. We can move it to later in the meeting.
So the I3 Works, they provide a service to us, which is very different than working with an outside entity, an organization like Rise Up or Hispanic Outreach that works directly with our students in house, so. That is probably where the confusion is, because the I3 Works agreement would look very different than.
Right, so I think it would be really helpful when we have data agreements, like if we list them separately in the consent agenda or have them as separate ones. Because I think it's really important for us to really review them on an annual basis. We had some concerns a couple of years ago that made us decide that it should be looked at very deeply on a yearly basis. So thank you for doing that work. So we'll table that. You want me to make a motion to table? No, we don't need a motion to table.
We can just leave it open until the end of the meeting. I've written it down, so
Okay.
I'll try not to forget.
Thank you.
Yes,
So someone is going to present more about I3 Works tonight.
Ann is presenting more about the process of where we're going with our data agreements.
Right.
And then where all of the outside agencies that would require a data agreement, where we're at in meeting with them.
Right, so I read through it, but, you know, I think about FERPA and the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. And I know that some of our state statutes have changed. And so I'm just wondering, like, what is I3 Works? You know, like, just a little Reader's Digest.
Sure. Do I know that now or when Ann?
Is Ann going to talk about it?
Yeah, and then
Okay.
also, I3 Works, our expert is over there.
I'm their district contact, so whenever you want me to chat about it, I can give a little bit more information about I3 Works
Okay.
as well.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understand it.
and I'll just speak on behalf of the Hispanic outreach. They're very valuable for us because they have kids, they see kids that come in here. I've seen some horrific things as they came into America. Waiting in places, some of them, not all, some. And there's some stories that are unbeknown to all of us. And, having the teachers help them, teachers learning English as a second language. There's a lot of concerns about making sure that they get help needed to be in our schools and in our society. So I really appreciate that everything that Hispanic Outreach does for the community and for our school. And how we as a group can embrace anybody that's new to that maybe has English as a second language, that we'll go out of our way to help that person catch up and be, feel welcome and be part of our community, school community.
Of course. So are we not doing anything with Hispanic outreach?
We tabled number 5, and that's all includes that.
We do have,
It's not in the, and I do not
Yeah,
see
we'll have
the.
Ann, we'll talk,
Right,
Ann will bring that, I'm hoping we'll discuss that.
Okay.
but we did meet with them last week. We went through kind of all of what worked this year with the data agreements, what didn't work. They had specific organizational questions with us, but I was under the impression that it was coming to consent today, but I also don't see it.
Right, so
Yeah.
I'm uncomfortable, I mean, I totally agree with you, Jim, but I'm uncomfortable okaying something on a
Let's
nice.
wait then. Wait till after Ann speaks, and we can ask the question to see if, we can always come back and table it to another meeting after we have further discussion during number 3
Okay,
on the business part, okay? So good with that then? You good?
Yep. I'm just not gonna vote in favor of something I'm not seeing.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions on number 5 for now? All right, we'll move on to donations and grants.
All right, I don't have to read that many this week, but they are significant. So, for the Juneteenth celebration of 2024, in the amount of $1,500 by Regular Shoe has been designated. Also for the 2024 Juneteenth celebration, in the amount of $100 from Ken and Therese Lomstead has been donated. Aim to Achieve Adults with Disabilities Program received $768 from the Minnesota Masonic Charities. Another 2024 Juneteenth celebration in the amount of $500 from an anonymous donor. And an additional Juneteenth celebration amount in the amount of $1,000 from Prairie Islands Indian Community Tribal Council has been given. And then also a variety of personal hygiene products from high school from Carla Mandela. So thank you for those donations.
Thank you, wonderful donations, yes.
Is the school having a presence on June 10th, or what are all these donations to the school for Juneteenth?
You want me to answer that?
Yeah.
Okay, so, the Juneteenth celebration is, the fiscal agent is community aid this year. It was taken out of city hands and put into the community, and there's a group of community members who have been showing up to help, fundraise, plan it, and stuff like that, so correct me if I'm wrong, but sometimes there's a line with community ed in the school district, but it is technically a community ed, they're just the fiscal agent, so.
Gotcha, that makes sense.
And a lot of the planning is done by BSU.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Oh, I didn't know that. Learned something new tonight, thank you. All right, is there a motion to approve the resolution? Moved by Ms. Ossendorf, is there a second?
Second.
Who said second? Ms. Rowe, how's that? All right, Ms. Ossendorf, roll call vote.
Aye.
Ms. Buck,
Aye.
Ms. Bjornstead,
Aye.
Ms. Schoenfelder.
Aye.
Ms. Rowe.
Aye.
Ms. Stiff.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Thank you very much for the generous donations. Very nice. All right. From right here, I've got the business items, budget update, Ms. Ryder.
Good evening. Lisa Ryder, Director of Finance and Operations for the district. And tonight we want to talk a little bit with the public with regard to our budget and our progress thus far. A couple of things from the last meeting with the board. We wanted to bring forward if there are options available with regard to the bus zone changes that were suggested, whether or not if we didn't do that, what that looked like for the budget. And in addition, request to take a look at the projection forward for fiscal year 26 as well. So I'd like to run through that very briefly, if that's okay.
Yeah, if you want to share it on your screen at all,
Yep.
by chance?
Thank you. So, let's find the right meeting here. We're going to start with this sheet here.
Can anybody make it bigger, Lisa or Lisa?
Let's see. Yes, down here.
There you go, thank
Is
you.
that better?
Perfect.
Okay. So we have 3 columns of numbers. The third column over in the middle of the page is where we were as of May 20th when we last spoke. The 2 columns to the left are the furthest left column is your with the bus zone change implemented, meaning that we would be reducing transportation 2 routes. And it would be a savings of $160,000 to the budget, but it also is a bus zone change, meaning there would be areas around our middle school and elementary schools that would require no bus service and families to find a means to get their kids to school if they're within that zone. The second column over is with the assumption that we would not make a change with the no bus zone and that instead we would not have that as a reduction item, which does mean we have then $160,000 less in expenditure adjustments. And so it does result in the end, I'll jump right to it, with about $124,000 that we are short of balancing the budget. So my suggestion and question for the board tonight is essentially as I prepare for our next board meeting where you would hopefully approve the budget for next year, What are you comfortable with regard to use of fund balance? I have no other options at this moment for you, other than to utilize fund balance for that difference, if that's the route you choose to go. So if I have an understanding of exactly kind of what you consider an acceptable amount, that would be very helpful to me, as there's quite a bit of work still yet to be done in getting the line item done and making sure that there's not other swings backwards and, up and down that occur in the preparation of the budget that could swing this one way or the other. At this point in time, 80% of the budget is our people. And so one of the main numbers that you see here is the line that is for FTE for schools and sites, with $1.5 million being identified there. That has seemingly been very consistent with what we have been talking about as we go. And after meeting all last week with principals and department heads, I feel much more comfortable in the fact that that number is pretty solid. So now it's a question of me finishing the rest of the line items and getting that all figured out and seeing what we have room for there. Okay. So that's the status of where we are with the current adjustments to the budget. For those that are coming into this from the public, basically the revenue numbers that we're talking about are $39 million. There were 3 line items that we adjusted since our last meeting in May, so you do see those added in. And just for things that came up that we recognized were slight adjustments to what we had otherwise talked about. And then on the expenditures, you see them line for line. You can compare the columns. Some of them were compressed into just like the line item for FTE for schools and sites, because it didn't make sense to pull them out separately. And I did, again, leave in the impact aid for fiscal year 26. It's not a 25 option, but I want to keep it in forefront too, and the fact that we want to work on that. And we talked a little bit also in the workshop regarding the supply budget and the fact that that is something that isn't necessarily it's going to be a reduction for some of our sites for sure, but it is based upon the enrollment reduction. So the hope is that the dollar amount per kid isn't changing, so that hopefully will at least still provide the supplies needed for the students we're projecting. So and then I did change the overall model, so it wasn't assuming a 1% increase, but instead just a flat. So between those two, we came up with the 20,000 we were looking for. So as we shift from here, now I want to move this forward a little bit to a conversation around.
Can we ask
sorry.
some questions? I have a question on this one, I guess.
Okay.
This page. Go back up. Let's talk about the $200,000 in lost revenue for GCD for Tower View and 5RO.
Oh.
RWPS contracted teachers.
Yep.
So.
You want me to explain that?
Yes.
We have employees that are Red Wing employees that are reimbursed by GCED as part of the bylaws, for example. Some of them might be like our tech people. So our technology folks, they work 90% on our things and 10% for GCED, and we are reimbursed for that 10%. So they're on my list, right? Additionally, there's another individual who is on a Red Wing contract, but is actually providing services through GCED for all member districts. And so we are reimbursed for that cost of salary and benefits for that person. So that list of people, when you compare 24 to 25, is reducing. There are a few folks that have resigned or retired from Red Wing that are no longer going to be paid for by us. And so we won't be reimbursed for them. So that is essentially what that is reflecting, is the change in that number coming down on the revenue side. And I've included the adjustments then on the loss of those folks on our reductions, right? Because not all of the FTEs for schools and sites is about people who were released. It's also those who resigned, retired. Any chance for utilizing open spaces, we did where could. You know, there's issues where licensures don't always allow for that, right? You sometimes have to still have open positions. So just know that that's kind of embedded in that number and part of the mix. But if I'm going to take them out of the expenditure side, I also have to reduce the revenue over lopsided.
So not tonight, but can I get the numbers, what it costs us since we're taking over Tower View ourselves, what the additional cost is for that sometime?
Yeah, that's going to take a little bit of unraveling, like I mentioned in the workshop, and we will get that for you, yes.
Could get it by, I don't know, either rush it or Friday.
You want by Friday?
Is that
Okay.
possible?
Yep.
Thank you.
So you want the comparison of what?
What, I want to know how much more it's costing us to run Power View than it did through GCED and why. And why it's more or less. Okay? I'm not against it, I just want to know it, that's all.
Yeah.
I think Power View is a wonderful program and we want to keep it going, and but it's something we have to have a conversation with people about. We should. Anything further on this one? Go on then, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to, I think I have to stop sharing this one and reshare. So give me one moment.
Lisa, while you're doing that, can I just ask one clarifying
Yes.
question? So the $160,000 for the busing, we learned in the last meeting that that amount cannot change because of our two-tier busing system. We can't just decrease decrease the bus zones for the older kids. We have to do it for both because it's a two-tier system.
Yes, in a two-tier system, if you're going to see a savings to your overall plan, you will want to be not driving a bus, not hiring a driver, not having an aide. All of that needs to happen. And if you're doing it for part of your tier and not the other, you're really not saving much.
Good question. I don't think any of us have really fully understood the one tier versus the two tier, how it can really work, but they've tried to explain it to us, it's just hard to understand. So, go ahead.
Okay, so now we're continuing the conversation where with these assumptions that we have, so the first column of these numbers here that you're looking at are our revised fiscal year 24 budget, the current year budget. And the top part is the calculation of the revenue amounts of $39.7 million, okay? Then we have our expenditures that we have approved by the board back in January, maybe it was February, for fiscal year 24 revised budget of almost 600,000, okay? That leaves us with an increase in, projected increase to the fund balance of around 130,000, okay? The next column over is our preliminary fiscal year 25. These are numbers that have been adjusted, and you're going to see I have two sets of expenditure numbers. So once you reach this middle part right here, you can see my cursor? No, you can't. Okay, so once you reach the expenditure line here, then there's this red line of data. And so the information below is if we were not to make a change to the bus zone. And so then your ending fund balance in the middle column, that number changes from 36,000 increase to the fund balance if we were to make that change. If we're not making that change, then you're looking at a reduction to the fund balance of around 124,000. Now, carrying this forward and talking about projecting fiscal year 26. Anytime you project out a second year, it gets a little bit challenging in the fact that you're essentially making assumptions based upon assumptions, because we're projecting 25 now, and we're now building upon that projection and projecting out again another year. So will your enrollment shift a little bit in the next year? That might impact 26, very possibly it could. Will expenditures change? Will something else come about that needs to make adjustments? Of course, right? So right now, this is a really big, high level, making some assumptions. We're assuming no change in levy. That levy process begins very soon here for the board, but it is not yet in the works, right? We're assuming our local revenue is going to not change from what it is in the preliminary that I've put before you, okay? We're assuming that for state aid, I did make an adjustment to the Gen Ed formula by increasing it by 2%, which is a big question because that's not yet determined by the legislature for 26 either. So if you assume 2% increase on the formula adjustment and adjust for the enrollment projections that we have, which right now is around 90 students less in 26 compared to 25, then those numbers change your state aid by approximately $500,000, okay? Reducing it. Your federal funds, we're assuming, are going to be about equal. And That 900,000 is kind of where we're at right now with our titles. This is excluding, our big loss going into 25 has been the ESSER funds. So we're thinking our federal funds are going to be stable from 25 to 26. So with those changes in revenue, we're looking at a reduction in revenue of around $500,000 in this projection. Our expenditures, trying to do the same thing. So just like we did for 25, we rolled forward our expenditure line items with certain assumptions. We made certain percentage assumptions based upon the type of expenditure. Supplies, we put in as 0, no change, right? We put in a 6% adjustment for insurance. We put in percentage adjustments depending upon whether it was a licensed position or a non-licensed position. And so those assumptions all put in, rolling it all forward, we're looking at that expenditure increase being around $4 million. Now, there's adjustments we're going to make in as we do our line item. There's adjustments we'll make at revised budget. All of that's going to influence this. But at this point in time, if we were to do nothing for 26, at this point in time, we'd be looking at a $4 million issue. Okay, that always gets scary. It sounds really high. It could be very high. I mean, it could be estimating high, right? I'll say that right now. But until you get more solid numbers, until you have the audited figures for 24 and you know exactly where that's at, now you know what you're basing your ending fund balance off from and your beginning fund balance. Your expenditures for this year, are there ways that we find that we can actually do things more efficiently? Who knows? Maybe, or are we going to also find ourselves maybe incurring additional costs for a particular area? Okay. This did include for 26 assumptions with regard to our transportation contract, as we know, because those numbers we do have as a cap. So that is in there as well. And we do know that that also included a significant adjustment for 26. So given that currently our revised budget has us increasing the fund balance, if we were not to make a change on the bus zone, we're looking at potentially spending down our fund balance for 25 slightly. And then for 26, you have to ask yourselves, what are we going to do about that? The reality is 2% on the formula, offset by our loss of students of 90 kids, we still lose money right there, right? I assumed everything else was the same, so that's $500,000 loss. How we control our expenditures is where this is at. And it was difficult to come up with the 2.2 million we've talked about for the 25 year. Unfortunately, this only gets to be a bigger problem. A lot can be adjusted here. It's just a question at this point, very big broad brush, giving you a sense. It's always scary for me to do this because it just sounds so horrible.
Well, we need to know that. So. Questions on it? Yes?
What is our current fund balance? You know, we have tried to keep it around that 10% or above it's been lately.
Yeah, so let me talk a little bit about that as I also look for something here. The fact of the matter is, as you talk fund balance, there's total fund balance, and then there's unassigned fund balance. So when you speak about the 12%, we ended last year's fiscal year audit, 23, at around 12% unassigned fund balance, which means those are dollars that are not committed to anything in particular and available for whatever is the need, right? As we roll this all forward, you don't know the exact number for that until you have your audit done for 24, okay? But you build upon that. We know that we lost about 3% on the unassigned fund balance when we had to use about $1 million last year of that fund balance. So that kind of gives you some context as to how quickly does that dissipate, okay? One thing that is challenging at this moment is to tell you exactly what the impact is to unassigned fund balance right now. Because once you get the line item budgets then complete, now you can start talking about how much of this revenue and expense is restricted and how much is truly unassigned. For instance, I might have an increase in our fund balance for LTFM because we didn't have as many projects this year, okay? So that's going to increase our fund balance for LTFM, but that still might mean you have a decrease in your unassigned fund balance. Overall, it's still an increase to the fund balance, but not necessarily the unassigned separately. Does that make sense? So I just want to make sure we're cautious about understanding what you said, 12%, that's unassigned, and that's what it was as of June 30, 23.
Yes.
So the transportation overage would come out of the unassigned fund balance.
Yes, that is not restricted funds.
Yes, Ms. Rowland.
So if I'm looking at your columns correctly and I'm understanding it correctly, so under revised fiscal year 24, the bottom line is that we added 129,886 to our fund balance,
That's what's projected
projected.
in our revised budget.
And in the next column, it says, well, if we want to do the busing, we're gonna take back basically all but 6,000 of that we possibly did. So that makes me feel a little bit better, because what we put in one year, we are taking out almost as much the second year, but it's still a positive. The third column will make me lose sleep for a long time. So obviously, with all things considered, I mean, you said it, everything is the same except our kid numbers are going down and our expenditures are going up. And that's where that number comes from. There's nothing else. So again, I think we'll have to have a conversation about what else do we do with that, but that helps me greatly, so thank you. And this is well done. Lisa, thank you so much for explaining it so well and having all of this prepared for us, because it is hard to understand school
Yep.
finances. I mean, this is my 8th year. This is as easy as I've ever understood it, so thank you for your
welcome.
teaching and guidance.
I think a good reminder, just to put in the spaces, a lot of this is coming because of the newest legislation, the underfunded, unfunded mandates, and so the most important thing that the community can do, that this board can do, is to continuously be reaching out to our legislators and those that represent Redmond specifically. Obviously, it's national, we're local here in Minnesota, but we need to be doing our due diligence with that too, so.
And as you know, we collectively sent a letter to our legislators and some of the leaders of the bodies of our legislative system up there. And the House Majority Leader replied back defending why they did all these things. And individually, I replied back with the help of our communication manager about, we didn't ask you for why you did it. We want you to know the impact your decisions had on us and others, because you didn't listen. So I just want to share that with everybody. And I didn't put anybody else's name on the line. So, never heard back. So it kind of was
They're working on it.
it was kind of a form letter response to, I took it as, so, but you're absolutely right. To change something, you need the 201 legislators, 67 senators, 134 representatives, and the governor for 202 to actually invest in education like they talk about it. I mean, the governor was a teacher in Mankato, but then he comes across and he signs all these unfunded mandate things. And Democrat, Republican, it has zero to do with that. It's what they're doing across the board for public education. You can't survive on 2%. A lot of things cost more all the time. Yes.
I think the most powerful thing is parents contacting their legislators and letting them know how these cuts are impacting them, their family, and their families and their children's education.
Yep.
So,
It's about the kids, it's about the kids.
yep, and we need help.
Okay, enough of that, I guess. More, yes. Ms.
Sorry, one more question.
Yeah.
At what point do we have the discussion about going to the community with levy requests?
Soon. We need to
You
have.
can have it, we can put it on the agenda anytime you want. I'm not sure this is,
We need to have a plan
yeah,
going forward.
you just,
Right.
not just say we want to do
Can't
it.
just say this is what's happening year after year. We need to come up with a plan.
And in my feeling, I could be individual, if you're gonna do it, I wanna do it on an even year on the first Tuesday of November during the regular elections, not a special election in May or October or April or whatever. I wanna have it when people come out to vote. That's where you get the true feeling of your community. We've been very successful the last few referendums by holding them on that date. You get the message out, so. Suggesting something?
I just think it's a discussion we need to have. We're seeing our budget projected out and even with all that Lisa said, hopefully it won't be as bad as it looks. But it's not looking good year after year, and we can't just continue to say, okay, well, we'll cut more and more. We can't sustain that. That cannot continue. So we talk about impact aid, that's wonderful, that's great, and I hope that is something that we can get in the next couple of years. But we also need to find other revenue, and I don't know what our options are other than asking our community to support our schools.
Well, let's put it on the agenda in July for discussion. Why not? Our new superintendent coming on board, and he may have some ideas too. I mean, I don't know if that gives us enough time to get a plan developed for November of this
No,
year.
I don't think so.
So you'll be waiting down the road, but you can even do it in August. We don't have to do it in July, we can do it in August. How's that? Let him get his feet on the ground. He's got enough on his plate. Yes, more?
We're about to get back and forth here.
I kind of get the sore neck. too.
Yeah. Well, and to add to what Jennifer is saying, you've been, before you were on the school board, you were chair of a referendum committee. And I think that if we are going to go to the taxpayers, the work to make that happen has to start now. It's not going to, it won't happen overnight. We have to get the community invested so the community will invest. And that's a process that takes time and planning and effort
And educating.
and educating.
Educating is key.
That is the key. So I'm glad you brought it up.
Okay, let's, August, yes, Ms. Schoenfelder.
Well, I think paramount to this discussion as well, instead of just asking taxpayers for money, is going to be, again, looking at our unenrolling students. It's huge.
Yep.
And we kind of had a somewhat of an enrollment study that wasn't very helpful to us, but doing that in a way that would give us information and maybe reimagine, whatever these students are leaving for, if that's something that we can offer here
Right.
in our district to retain them, because that is we already have that money if we just keep them here. That is much easier than launching a referendum campaign. So I think it needs to really be looked at if referendums are on the table, that's a huge source of income that we
You're
are
absolutely
losing.
right. Where are we losing it? We think we know why where are we losing it? How can we recapture it? How can we build on that? Yes, Ms. Osborne.
So Lisa was asking what figure we would be comfortable with dipping into that fund balance. Like Pam, I was looking at the same thing that you were of, if that increase from this year offsets the decrease from next year, great. I would say I personally would not be comfortable with more than 200,000, but as close as we can keep it to that 125, I think is probably the more palatable. For me personally, I can't speak for anybody else, of course,
I
but
would go along with 125. Because you gotta, these are projections right now.
Right.
But I think overall, what the public has been saying is the bus zones, we've been getting a few emails. I think consensus of the board, it sounds like keeping the bus zones the way they currently are, not expanding them. If I'm wrong with that, please speak up.
Right, we're not, yeah, we can't.
I think the consensus
Yeah.
seems to be, just nodding our heads here, but that would come with the motion to approve the budget for July 1st. Yes,
I just have to say this, I completely agree, and I'm definitely for that, taking that 125,000. But I'm struggling because I'm weighing the cuts in staff versus the transportation. And I just need to mention that we are more comfortable, I think, as a board, and I certainly am doing it for the transportation, because with staff, it's year after year after year. Whereas with transportation, we know that it's for this year, and then we can look at it again the following year. I would like to be able to instead take the money and pay another teacher or two. And that's a really hard decision, to be able to say that it's for transportation instead of lowering our class sizes or, whatever we can do in our schools, because our job is to educate children, not necessarily to provide transportation for them. Although I think it's important as a community matter to make sure that our kids are obviously safe. And so I agree with this, but I just need to put that in the space that these are things that we're thinking about, and we don't take it lightly. None of us do who is working on this, and so we understand that that amount of money could pay for another teacher or two. But long term, this is how we need to think of it now.
Okay. Anything else for the budget update at all for Ms. Ryder? Or Ms. Ryder, do you have anything further?
No.
Okay. Thank you. No action, because we'll be approving the budget at our next meeting on June 17th. For which we have to be done by the end of the year, end of the June for us for the state.
Yes.
So
Yes.
let's target the June 17th, as we've been all along. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Grant update.
Just very
Is that
quickly,
okay? Go ahead.
I'm just gonna go over like a quick tutorial. Is that all right? I think this is just really important to understand our grants. So hopefully my screen will share. Got a lot of conversations about grants. We have had an amazing teaching and learning team that has worked together this year to get grants. But what I want to do is make sure that the community knows and that all of you know that this is a practice that is common in school districts to try to secure grants. But there's different types of grants and how we actually secure them and how they function. So competitive grants are ones that we simply apply for. There's lots of competition for them, and so sometimes we get them, sometimes we don't. This year, we've been about maybe 60% of the grants that we do apply for, we've been able to get some portion of it, so we don't necessarily get everything that we ask. Other times, we're afforded the entire grant depending on how the grant is written. We also, every year, complete formula grants, and these are appropriated for all districts, and of course, it's just based on specific criteria. So just some examples for those in the public, and then the board here too, is our competitive grants are things like our comprehensive state literacy grant that we did get this year, our Pelsby grant, which helped with our mentorship programming and onboarding, our Red Wing Public Schools Foundation grant that goes out every year. It is competitive, not all of our teachers or staff that apply get it, but I think the Red Wing Public Schools Foundation does try to be thoughtful about the different types of needs that our staff are applying for. Our formula grants are very different. There are Title I, 2s, 3s, 4s, 6s, our American Indian Ed funds, and also federal funds related. Achievement integration, which we do not qualify for right now. We don't have a disparity of 20% to qualify. That is one that I promise you, even when I am not in Red Wing, I will double check every single February and call Lisa to say whether or not, because it's just 3 years of money that could be really used usefully. And then of course, we talked a little bit about the impact aid. So when you're thinking about grants, there's just different pots that we go to, some that are just naturally afforded to us because of characteristics of different students or needs that we have, and others that we have to get creative with and obviously compete with other organizations. The other thing that I wanted to be mindful of are gifts and in-kind donations that we do get. We do policy 706 that we obviously look at when I am talking about like the Juneteenth celebration donations. Gift again is just a donation. There is no, it comes with a specific outcome from that donor. The one thing that I want to advise this group of are donor advised gifts that we do get. One specific example is when we do work with outside organizations that say, we're going to give you the money, or hey, we have this grant with our organization, but there are specific criteria to it. So Red Wing might be associated with a donor advised gift, which also falls under grants, but has very specific requirements, and typically it does support the goals or the vision and mission of that specific organization. The in-kind donations are not monetary. So for example, this year, Rise Up was able to give us 10 attendees that attended a regional equity workshop. So that was more about, hey, you can select 10 attendees from Red Wing to go. The donor advised contributions, another example is Rise Up Red Wing provided some opportunities for us to select curriculum, professional development, among other things. But again, just to understand the difference between our gifts, our donor advised gifts, and then our in-kind donations. One thing that I do want to share, just so you can kind of see where we're at with, can you guys see my whole screen here? I want to share some of the newest grants that were written this year. And as I noted earlier, we apply for grants every year, but these are some of the newer ones that we have come through. So Dakota Electric did reach out to me last spring and said, hey, we bought $7,000, we would love to give you. So again, a donor, not necessarily donor advised, it was kind of a combo of donor advised and in kind. Obviously, it had to contribute to the success of our students, not necessarily the goals of Dakota Electric. So teaching and learning team did work on bringing in math consultants and looking at that in curriculum.
Make it bigger.
How's that?
Better.
Okay.
Thank
The comprehensive literacy grant is one that actually affords us the opportunity to actually pay for the licenses for our teachers to take the letters training to improve our literacy instruction, which, as you know, the READ Act is compounding many school districts with opportunities for us to not only buy the course content, but also in some districts, not ours, there is legislation now that requires us to pay a certain amount of money towards that. We have luckily had a great teaching and learning team to create a calendar that the PD is embedded into the contractual time. So these are just some examples.
Okay.
I can have this available to you, but there's one pagers. A couple of things that I'd like to point out, the BAR grant that was given to us is highly competitive. We actually applied and did not get it. However, if you recall, in February, some of our staff did go to the legislative floor to talk about the impact of BAR, and suddenly we were granted some money to be able to bring BAR to the middle school. So I just give kudos out to our teaching and learning team, our high school administration, and Nikki Larson, who is our BAR coordinator currently. So these are just some examples. We've had teachers who are applying for grants, specifically Kristen Bray, who got the Understanding Native Minnesota Art Competitive Grant. We have our donor advised pieces that are coming from Red Wing as well. So about $329,400, some of those are in kind, so it equates to, the cost of seat time and so on. So that's just kind of a rough update. We are waiting for 4 grants that are pending. There are 2 that we anticipate to know more on in June, and another 2 that we'll know in August. So, let's see.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Questions? Yes.
What will those pending grants fund?
Okay, so the native language revitalization, we requested $499,000 plus to have an integrative Dakota language integrated E7, and then to bring some Dakota language through grades 1 through 3, and then also enhance and build our high school foreign language, Dakota language. The full service community schools is in collaboration with Rise Up in the amount of $599,000, so about $600,000, which is wraparound services that will be brought to Twin Bluff Middle School. And then we have 2 smaller ones. We had a literacy grant that was written in the amount of $3,900 for some subscriptions to some curriculums for curricula for teacher at the elementary level in terms of literacy intervention. And then Andy Richardson in our industrial tech did write a grant for $13,000 for some really fancy shop stuff. And I can't even say some of the words on this, what he asked for, but it will be comprehensive and build the industrial tech department. So
Yes.
The latter two are August, review dates, and then the ones that I did present to you, I'm hoping to do in the next 2 weeks, so.
It's awesome.
I'm just wondering if you can talk about the process of how those grants are found. Like you talked about the teaching and learning department, but like, you know, when Kristen Bray writes a grant to get an artist to come in, is Kristen researching that and like finding it on her own? Or like is teaching and learning saying, hey, Kristen, like this might be a good fit for you. Just, can you talk about how that works?
That's a unique example, because Kristen will
Okay.
always find a grant. That's just who she is, but, I obviously get grants that come in, we have, listservs that we're on, getting onto the USDE, so the federal website, the impact aid, those type of pieces. It's also just consultative, who you know, so the teaching and learning department is working with, other teaching and learning departments to talk about what are you applying for. MD is our biggest one-stop shop. It's just a matter of getting on there and writing a very comprehensive grant application. So that's a little bit of a science, but some of them are just, apply, because what we're finding out too is that a lot of the competitive grants, they don't get a lot of applicants either, so it depends on what the unique circumstances are, so. So it's a little bit of everything, there isn't like a one-stop shop. The one thing that I would recommend for the board is to actually take a little bit of time to review policy 706, because we have not really fully implemented after we receive the grant or after we get the donor advised money. It should really be vetted through the board, or prior to even submitting a grant would be a good idea to actually get that in front of all of you as well, just for some input. So policy 706, we could expand on a little bit, and get a little bit more polished on our processes for that.
Any other questions? My question, I think they're all great grants, a lot of stuff to help the extra things that we can do, and the code of language, I believe, bring some staff in to teach that. Is the one going to middle school? I mean, I'm also looking for, interested in also something to help us supplement some staff, if we have, grants to help improve reading of whatever grade, or math, or something like that. Is there anything out there to help supplement besides the couple that you shared? The one you talked about for sure, the rest of them are all great. At the end of the day, it's $329,000 for some nice extra things that I think are tremendous, but is there something out there that to help fund?
Possibly, but I think
Position.
the big thing to understand here is we can't supplant anything. So anything that we've already funded through other funding streams, we cannot try to get a grant to cover, because there's a complete supplanting clause. So you have to be very careful about the money that would have otherwise been, unless it has been removed. For example, ESSER funds. If ESSER funds is removed, which it is, we may have a position that we could then write a grant for. However, we can't move funds and say, okay, let's free up this money because we're gonna get this grant, because it would be considered supplanting. So then it's something that the state does look at. Also, grants have very specific criteria. So for example, if you want to add in staff or administration or supervisory pieces, or any percentage that you can put towards that. So they do put some caps and expectations on what the funds can be used for. But vetting them to see how we can actually put them into our system is kind of like Tetris. It's a puzzle to make sure that what we do, it actually works in the bigger picture. And we don't want to duplicate services. So if we do a lot of the same thing, to make sure we diversify it.
Okay, thank you. Renee, update, data agreement with outside entities. Is that Ms. Robertson? Good evening, how are you?
Hello, my name is Ann Robertson. I'm the communications manager here at Red Wing Public Schools, and part of my work this spring has been, this past year has been to work on the data agreements with outside entities, because as all of you know, the state law changed as of July 1st last year, limiting what directory data on individual students is available. And then, so our purpose is looking out for our students, protecting their data. But then I think the message from the school board also has been ensuring that these relationships benefit our students and also further the school district's mission. So we've just been looking at them one at a time, meeting individually with each entity. So far, we've met with Hispanic Outreach, had what worked, what didn't work. This past year, they provide mentoring services after school. So it does not disrupt the school day at all. Students are not pulled out of class. It's extra tutoring, helping them with everything from math to English to social studies, you name it. So that is kind of the one where we're at so far that we've met with. And then also I3 Works. And when I'm finished, maybe if you want Ms. Seefeld, the teaching and learning coordinator, to explain a little bit about what she does with the data studios that I3 Works helps us with. That is kind of different than our community relationship data agreements, because we need to have somebody who handles that outside data, and that's what I3 Works does for us internally. And then with our local program relationships, and there's a lot, everything from the Care Clinic to Fernbrook to Rise Up. There's a pretty almost complete list. I didn't realize it was going to get shared with you tonight, but where we're at with looking at some of those relationships that we have with other entities, that is involving individual student data in some cases, which is why we need these data agreements every year, and parents have to opt in for their students' individual data to be made available to anybody outside of select people need to know basis at Red Wing Public Schools. So I think it'd probably be better if you just wanted to ask me a couple of questions and kind of let me know where you want me to go next.
So, so about whatever it was, I3 Works or something.
Well, I guess my biggest question was, why was it on the consent agenda?
Oh, the only one I thought that was going to be on the consent agenda was I3 Works, just because it's an annual. It's not an agreement that we're providing them with data. They look at raw data combined, and then that goes in for our that we look at how are we doing beyond just FastBridge scores and extrapolating those. And that's something that I think that Emily Seefeld could explain a little bit in more detail. So that was the really the only one that I thought was consent agenda. And then the individual ones, like we're meeting with the various groups to be talking about that and then bringing them forward. And I guess the question is, do you want some kind of ad hoc board group to look at them? Did you want to discuss them at each board level? Part of it is that I3 Works was more of a operations tool that we use.
I think the confusing language was that it was recommended that this was going to be the model contract.
Oh, I didn't even know that was there until I got it today, until I saw it loaded up on there.
Consent agenda listed Hispanic Outreach and I3 Works, and that we were supposed to vote on that. And I don't really understand or know why we were doing that. Are we
So my,
okaying the I3 Works contract today?
Let's have Emily come on up here, Emily. Come on up and join us. You said you're itching to get up here, I know.
Yeah, tell us what it does.
Hello.
Hello.
So I3 Works, we've worked with them, I want to say at least 4 years, quite a long time. So what they do for us is we have multiple data systems. So we have our student information system, Synergy, and then we might have our minors, for example, for referrals in another system. I3 Works can take all of that extra data and we can say, we want a data studio that shows us exactly this, and it'll analyze the data across multiple ways that we want it. So we have an admin one that, as I said, it'll take all of our referrals and it can even break it down to, I can pull up a page and it'll be like, ooh, Monday at 10 a.m., that is our #1 time. So you can really see the data in different ways as well. So that's what they do for us. It's on as needed basis. There's times that once they build a data studio, it's only maintenance really at the beginning of the year. So it's not like a weekly or even sometimes a monthly thing. So we have an overall, we call it behind the numbers data studio for building admin that talks behavior data across the district. And it really does look at it in different ways as well, from grade level to students. It's how we can know, ooh, you know what, they've had a lot of minors and only one major, but when I look at it together, this is a kid that we really want to make sure that we are paying attention to and meeting so we can meet their needs as well. They've also built a data studio for BAR at high school. So BAR has weekly data that Nikki Larson needs to pull. And so she has access to that. And that will pull the things she needs right away, like attendance and tardies and grades. The thing about them, they are a data analysis company. They are very data literate. I actually can't share any of the data studios. That is not an access that I have. We just tell them who needs access to it. And they're the ones that part of their contract that they handle that as well. Yes.
So explain what a data studio is.
So a data studio is like a separate, secure web portal is the best way that I can describe it. And so one of the pages I can go into when I pull monthly data for all of the admin is it will be percent of students with a major. And the reason why that's important, and that's just honestly one of 17 pages. This one data studio is really old. We've added to it over the years and it's already coded. So it's just good to go every year. I want to know how many kids in 9th grade have 0 majors, 1, 2, 3, 4. It does percent because numbers are misleading. We can have a kid that we know is struggling. And so they might have quite a few referrals in a 6-week span where their life is really, really tough. And that counts one kid maybe has these 6. When you look at a percent, it's percent of students, not the student that it's counting as like 20 or 30. As I said, it'll also pull day of the week, location, time. If we're trying to find a pattern, and it might be a specific class, things like that, but it's really used for that. It's used when we do initially evaluations. We'll pull like longitudinal data of how many majors and minors have we had over the last couple of years as well. And so it's just a way to access that. Synergy isn't a user-friendly system. It's not designed as that. Synergy is like your courses and your classes and all of that. That would have to be hand tabulated. So this just is on demand, pull it up, and it syncs overnight. So the biggest one is that. They've done the bar one as well. So.
Yes.
Do we use that for gathering raw data for like math test scores or reading test scores?
That's actually within FastBridge. So I just use the FastBridge system. So I do that from FastBridge. I don't have them pull anything that is easily accessible that we already have graphs for. So FastBridge I get from FastBridge. A lot of our MCA things I have within my access as district assessment coordinator in a system called Edium. I can see all of that, but a lot of it is also public on the Minnesota Report Card website as well.
Yes.
So I'm assuming that these data agreements are reviewed and made every year.
Mhm.
Would that be accurate? Who's the person who determines who has access to the students? And is that like an all or nothing access? Or do certain, like, I can't imagine like the care clinic needs access to grades, right? Or like how, do you know what I'm
It's
asking?
driven by the policy and the legislation of who has access to what and what their need is for that access. It's not like one person decides it, we get into the policy.
Ms. Roberson, Sonic, you have something?
Regarding the care clinic, they did, we used to have a non-local agency come in and clean certain kids' teeth. That's what the care clinic does. What we just have them sign an agreement that says that if they get educational data, which they normally wouldn't, but if that happened, it's just to protect the kids so that they would know, oh, we're just here to clean the child's teeth, and it's basically just a safeguard for our kids in that example.
But I see like there's one that says we declined or one that says refused to sign. So like who is declining if that's not?
We were so overwhelmed in the example of what you're talking about, where we declined to participate this year. It was, they wanted to come in and bring a new service in, and there were so many things going on, and it was already like March of the year. And we were like, I mean, by the time we would have brought it to you guys, it would have been May 10th. I mean, so that's certainly why we're trying to get ahead of some of the ones we already have good relationships with and bringing those to you. And then looking at some of these other agencies that want to work, come in and work with us.
About the one that refused to sign, did they get any data then, or no double data?
Emily, maybe you can help me out a little bit. Part of it is that we just had they had some staff people who said they did not want to sign. There's 3 components to it. And one of those components is that you, parent authorization, and then the staff person who says, yeah, I will agree to do this. And if a staff person says, no, I don't want to do that, then they don't have access to the system. They'll just get whatever data they ask for specifically, and then like Ms. Seafeld will get it for them.
Yep, I have a form for internal data request, and to say why you need it and what it's for. And then it has to meet like educational purposes and part of the Privacy Protection of People Act as well. So for some of those internal ones.
Yes.
I don't know if it helped answer your question, but for the outside agency MOU, it lists what type of data the agency has access to. And you only have access to that data if the parent agrees. So it's,
So if somebody refuses to sign but works in a group, another area, could they have somebody else get that data for them? That has
No.
signed?
They signed it and they said you can't share it with other groups. So for instance, I don't have any access to student data. I shouldn't have access to individual student data, which is partly why I have that kind of as a neutral role here. There's nothing for me to gain, if that makes sense. There's no reason. There may be a reason that a teacher says, hey, I'd really like to know how the student is doing in math. And you might say, well, you can meet and talk about it as in a bar situation where the teachers all come together and talk and try to support a student that way. But there probably wouldn't be a reason for somebody. A better example would be a general ed student. There'd be no reason for a special education teacher to see a general ed student's specific data. And vice versa.
Yes, Ms.
Can I kind of go back to what Jennifer was talking about? So if we have a data sharing agreement with an outside agency, even though we have very prescriptive, this is what we can share, still, before any data gets shared with an outside agency, parents still, just because we say it and have an agreement, if parents don't want that data shared, it does not get shared. I just want to make sure
That's correct.
I understand.
Correct.
Make sure
Mhm.
that.
And one of the things that's complicates things now and then is that somebody said, well, hey, could you get me the parent's address and their email and phone number because I want to contact them and we'd like to see if their student would like to participate in that. We can't give them that data. We can tell them that Ann Robertson is in 9th grade at Red Wing High School, and that's it. The student's name and the grade, the year of school. In the past, you had access to addresses and that kind of thing, and the legislature said, no, we're not allowing that anymore because there's been too many problems with that. So on July 1st, that's what all changed, so that we had to go back, and that really delayed our MOUs this last year, getting them started. So we were trying to get ahead of the game a little bit this year. And for instance, the I3 Works one was one of the ones, since it's internal data, that makes sense that we use. We wanted to expedite that one so that on July 1, we're ready to go.
Okay. Thank you. I'll allow you one more question. The I3, just because that was on the consent agenda, we didn't table, we just moved it all down to the end. I3 Works, MOU okay to, has it been signed?
Yep, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they signed it.
Yep.
You okay with it?
And there were no changes. It's just that from last year, it's just the year for the school year.
You'll actually have that, if I remember correctly, time-wise, their contract, different than their MOU, will be to the board probably, I think it's late August or generally that first meeting in September.
Yep.
Me too, then, since that was on this consent agenda too.
No.
No, it's not ready to go?
Well, it's nowhere to be looked at.
Right, we can't read it.
Oh.
No.
Okay. Well, okay.
So I can get that for you on the 17th, and we may have one or two other ones by that time.
Okay.
And then
I'm just really still confused about why this is. Is this something that you want the board to look at and okay? Is that why it's on the consent agenda? What's the purpose of having it listed there?
I think last year with all of the different entities, what we wanted was to actually get it in front of you, and if there are any questions, and then move forward into it. Because there are, it's, as lived experience, right?
But you are asking for us to approve I3 Works, Emily, correct?
Yes.
So yes, and that's the one that is in here.
Okay, so then we need to strike out of number 5, the Hispanic outreach.
Or just table it to a future meeting when they bring it forward.
Sure.
That'd be the best we can. We could vote it down, that would probably be wise for us. As we're working through the Hispanic, we can table the Hispanic one and vote on to come back to, you're working on, yeah, I think that's, we can come back whatever date, there's no, okay? Yes,
But, so I think maybe, I still don't know that Pam's question got answered.
why is it on there, yeah?
Right, like, maybe we need to have those agreements as a separate agenda item and not on the consent agenda.
We can do that.
Because we're gonna pull it off and talk about it anyway, so,
I
and we
agree.
should be looking at it.
Right, I agree, I would appreciate that. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay. Anything further, anything more for these two ladies?
Me? Sit back down. Okay.
All right, thank you, Ms. Robertson.
Thank you, Ann.
All right, kickoff.
Oh.
Week discussion.
Wait, then, do we need to go back and?
We'll do that
Number
later.
5? Okay.
I got it written down.
I don't know.
Before we
I can talk.
conclude the meeting. Go ahead, Superintendent Wagner.
Okay, this one kind of threw me off a bit because I'm not entirely sure. I think this may be a mix-up from the discussion about what we want the board retreat to look like in July versus the kickoff discussion, because I don't think you guys choose, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think the board chooses how we.
Nope.
Do our staff kickoff, yeah.
So,
Tell us when it is and where to be.
I don't have my computer in front of
I have
me. It is
so-
that Monday, August 26th. Yep.
So essentially that's the kickoff day. We will work with Bob.
Yeah, we'll work with Bob. We're still planning it. We did have a request. I've had multiple requests to do a second annual goose chase. Don't get it, yeah, we learned the system a little bit better this year, but no, once we know more, the teaching and learning department will tell you more about district kickoff on August 26th.
Perfect.
We'll let Bob know that his film production crew is ready for him.
Yep, we gotta do our video, yeah.
So,
Prizes, please, this year.
You just better be careful what you ask for.
You gotta tell that to follow, Bob. There's some big out there, but.
He's got time. He's got time to figure it out now. He's got no students. Graduation was last week, so, great, okay. School board salaries, this came before me and Lisa, we made the motion back a couple of years ago to bring it back forward. And my recommendation, based upon the budget cuts and things that we table any increase for school board members based upon the resolution that was passed back a couple of years ago. So if, my motion is to just table it, my thing is to table it. I'll give you, to table it, any increase for 2025. But I will say this, I was a big believer of making the position a little bit affordable for somebody that wants to be a board member that may have to take off of work to attend meetings and committee stuff, to make it worth a little bit, because somebody asked, a couple of people have asked me lately, what do you pay per hour for being a school board member? I said, about 50 cents. You know, it's about it, because it does take a ton of work. Not complaining, but we want to make sure that we have people that aren't taking a financial hit to be able to serve on a board. So, but I'm in favor of tabling any increase for 2025. That's wishes of the board. But it's not a motion, because once that's a motion, any discussion is over. Yes.
I would also recommend at some point in the future, now we're kind of past all of the negotiations, but there was significant negotiation meetings this year. And our current pay structure is $30 per person per meeting for negotiations. That's above and beyond what's here. And there is no provision in there, like if you have to be in mediation a full day, $30 isn't gonna cut it, because you do have to take a full day off of work. So I would encourage you to add in your discussion in the future, how you want to add that in there. That should be something that is decided as the board.
Or go as you have suggested too, with a hire and negotiator, instead of having board members on it, and the superintendent and negotiator and negotiate. We did that in the county.
Yeah, and you probably should talk about that. I mean, I'm
Sometimes down the
saying
road,
it should, because I probably won't need to be here for that future discussion, but, or I won't be here for that future discussion, but I think that it's important to discuss and talk about. Because in there, you know, we just finished a good round of many negotiating groups, but there's still some out there, and we should start thinking about the next round sooner rather than later, so that we're not behind anymore. We're behind in there.
You make total sense on that. I agree, $30 for a whole day is not fair. Yes,
And we don't want that financial issue to be a barrier to somebody running for school board
or on that committee.
or on that committee.
So, and so we'll have that discussion when our new superintendent gets down here sometime in the rest of 2024. So see what he brings, his ideas and thoughts on that too, so. Any discussion more on the pay? Anybody wishes to make a motion one way or the other?
I move we table any increase in pay for school board members to a future time in 2025.
Motion table, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Ossendorf, motion by Ms. Bjornsted. No, not tabled, motions are non-debatable. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 2024 election resolution. We have to do this annually, I believe, so. Everybody, Reading Public School District will holding a general election in conjunction with the state. General election on Tuesday, the 5th day of November 2024 for the purpose of electing 4 school board members for terms of 4 years each. So, anybody want to make that recommendation?
So moved. I move to approve the resolution calling for the 2024 general election.
Second.
So, motion by Ms. Rose, second by Ms. Schoenfelder. This is a resolution. Go by roll call vote. Ms. Schoenfelder?
Aye.
Ms. Rose?
Aye.
Ms. Tiff?
Aye.
Ms. Ossendorf?
Aye.
Ms. Buck?
Aye.
Ms. Bjornsted?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Okay. Second reading of policy 505 and policy 904. Any questions? Hearing none, we'll move along. Second reading to adopt NSBA model policy 507.5, school resource officers. This is the second reading. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll move along. Educational Support Personnel Association Agreement. That is Ms. Ryder. You're gonna wear the carpet going up and down here.
I know, right? Right.
I am pleased to be here tonight because this means the 4th agreement coming before you for negotiations. And it's been a long road. So negotiations with our Red Wing Education Support Personnel Association have completed. The Ed Support Group has ratified the agreement, and the recommendation is for the school board to approve the agreement between the school district and Red Wing Education Personnel Association for the period of July 1, 2023 through June 30, 2025. There are highlights listed in the board packet with regard to this agreement. I'll just cover those quickly. Updating of necessary dates. The addition of Juneteenth as a paid holiday for only the 11th and 12th month employees. Addition of revised language affirming the 11th and 12th month employees are eligible for vacation at the start of employment. Retroactive pay will be paid to, this is phrasing that will be in the contract. It's essentially documenting what is practiced, but we wanted to put it in there. So it's retroactive pay will be paid to all members except those terminated for cause and staff that resigned while on probation. Any members who are on layoff or who have retired will receive retroactive pay. This contract does have an increase for hourly wage schedule of 3.25% in the first year, and again, another 3.25% in the second year. There is no change in the first year for longevity or insurance. Rather, that begins in the second year of 24-25, with longevity increasing an additional 15 cents for the years 7 through 10, an additional 20 cents for years 11 through 15, and an additional 25 cents for the 16 years or more. And these are increases to the existing longevity amounts. And then beginning in 24-25 is an increase in the maximum school district monthly contribution for health insurance of up to $615 for single and up to $1,225 for family insurance. And again, that's the monthly contribution by the district.
Thank you. Any questions? Motion to approve the contract?
I will make that motion.
Ms. Rowe makes a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Stipp. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Now we're back to I3 Works on number 5. We're doing two separate things here, motions, I believe, if I'm understanding it right. We're doing one for I3 Works or not. We're waiting.
We're tabling one.
We're tabling Hispanic outreach, or we're not.
We're tabling one.
Yeah, so I'm doing I3 Works. What is the board's thought on that one? There's two of them, I3 Works and Hispanic outreach.
I will make the motion to approve I3 Works MOU.
Okay? So there's a second.
I'll second.
Motion by Ms. Tiff, second by Ms. Bjornstedt. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And I believe we're tabling Hispanic outreach only because the MOU wasn't to us. And that once it's finalized and signed,
Right.
it'll come to us at a future board meeting. So we need to table that motion, table that to a future board meeting.
I'll make a motion to table that till we have the MOU signed.
Motion by Ms. Ossendorf, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Rowe. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Upcoming meetings and future topics. We have our next meeting on 2 weeks from tonight. So we have the meeting tomorrow, the presentation we talked about for the retirees tomorrow night at 5 o'clock. And it's getting humid outside, so it's getting warm. Summer's here, so we want to all enjoy it.
In case you wondered.
Right?
Duly noted.
Anybody else having, anything else come before this board this evening?
Oh, you know, I regret not saying something during our recognition and upcoming events. I had the opportunity to attend a ton of the flight paths presentations. And I think the possibilities for internships for our students and work experience, anything from forestry to tattoo artistry, to teaching, to engineering, I mean, nursing. It's amazing what the opportunities our kids have. So kudos to those students who took advantage of the opportunity. They did a great job. And to Mike Wendland and the other teachers that are a part of that program. Really cool.
And I'll piggyback on that, echo that. I went to some too, and just the way they present, you know, these young adults are, you know, getting a taste of different things out there that they may have interest in the future. And kudos to the 40, 50 some businesses that open their doors for our students too. Besides all the students and Mr. Wetland and all the other staff that helped with that. And some of our community members were there watching, and very nice to see. And one more thing I thought of too, and I didn't get to all the other graduations, but I did get this year to the Hispanic one. That was very nice, very nice. I didn't get to the other ones. Other things scheduled that I have, I'll get to them now next time, I hope. But it was really nice. So, saw some of you there. Good night. All right, anything else before this board? Mr. Joshik, do you have anything?
I do not.
Okay, well, we'll see you soon. All right, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So.
Second. Motion by Ms. Ossendorf, second by me. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We're adjourned. I gotta get in the minutes.
We have to know you were here.